Call this meeting of the Hurst-Euless-Bedford Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. All right. To get started, I need to make a couple announcements. First, I want to let the board know that item 6.03, approval of the TK Education Consulting contract, has been postponed until the next meeting. There were a couple contractual issues that needed to be still worked out on that, so that will be presented at the next meeting. And I also want to let the board know that at the last meeting, Mr. Cargile had requested that we discuss the desk shields. He has withdrawn that request due to pending litigation, so that request has been withdrawn. Mr. Chapman, any comments?
No, the only comments is that your information is in your packet that you request each board meeting, which reflects the COVID cases over the weekend up to 12 p.m. today. And also in your packet, you do have an invitation from Linebarger, attorney at law, for a holiday party. If you wish to attend that, please complete the information there and pass it down to Ty, and she will take care of your reservation. That's it for me.
All right, thank you. And any further clarifications required? No. All right, we're ready for open forum number 1. Thank you. Tonight, the Board of Trustees is meeting in a called board work session. The board welcomes and appreciates comments and input from the community. Open forum is provided at each meeting to allow the public to address the board. There will be 2 open forums tonight. Open forum number 1 is to hear requests regarding agenda items only. Open forum number 2 is to hear requests or make comments regarding non-agenda items and will be heard at the end of the meeting. Those addressing the board are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes per meeting. The speaker should identify his or her name, group affiliation if any, and make a brief presentation with an identified solution if one is sought. Remarks should be addressed to the board as a whole. Oral presentations may not include charges against any employee or board member by name. It is my responsibility to determine if a person addressing the board has attempted to resolve a concern informally or through the district's complaint policies. If not, the speaker will be directed to follow the appropriate policy. The board requests that all presentations be made in a courteous, respectful, and professional manner and asks that speakers monitor their own behavior. If you wish to speak during one of the open forums, please fill out one of the cards located on the table in the entry hall. Our first speaker is Charlotte Brashears. Okay. The next speaker is Mary Lowe.
Mary Lowe, Mothers for Liberty. I too was actually here to speak to you about TK Consulting, but I'm going to shift and take this opportunity to ask you a couple of questions and to take into consideration some respect of parental rights. The PPRA is the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendments. It's of 1978, and I know that the administration across Tarrant County use this quite frequently to justify a lot of the actions that they take. I would like for you to also begin to use that in respecting parents and create a policy of opting in to surveys that you may present to students that are asking questions that are of a social emotional nature. I do not believe that if parents had full knowledge that this data is being collected to create a case or an identity for the student starting as early as kindergarten, that they would approve of that. So until you have a law or can be open with your parents and transparent, we would like for you to consider an opt-in on all surveys, no matter who or what curriculum it's a part of, whether it's Rhythm, whether it's Panorama. I do not care what you use, where you are gathering data. We would appreciate if you would take the position of PPRA and parents' rights and adopt a policy of opt-in only. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That is our only speaker for open forum number 1, so at this time we will convene into closed session. Oh, one more? Okay. Lisa Langston?
It's on, what I just found out was canceled for tonight, they moved to next week. Would you like me to wait till next week, because I would be respectful?
It's up to you, so,
Okay.
okay.
You're gonna let me, I'm gonna go.
It's not an agenda item.
Yeah, so it'd be in the second point, I'm sorry.
Oh, so I have to wait?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't
Yeah.
wait, I have another meeting to go to. I know, but I have another meeting to go to. I was gonna speak in Form 1 because it was on the agenda,
Right, I understand,
and now it's not.
okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll hear from you next week. All right, so the board is going to convene into closed session pursuant to Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Section 551. The board will adjourn into closed session for purposes of Section 551.071 to 551.074. Sorry, it is the next thing we do. All right, we're back from closed session. We're down to action items. We're gonna actually skip over 6.01 and do the other three, and then come back to 6.01. So the first one is approval of out-of-state, out-of-country student travel. Were there any questions on this item? All right, then I will accept a motion.
I move that we approve the out-of-state, out-of-country student travel as presented.
Second?
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the out-of-state, out-of-country travel as, student travel as presented. Please vote. That motion passes. Okay, we are now ready to go back to item 6.01. I will accept a motion.
I move that the board approve the proposed mediation agreement in TEA docket number 227 SE 0721. Oh, sorry, it needs to come back this way.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the mediation agreement in TA document number 227 SE 0721. Please vote.
Rochelle was the second. It's right here.
Was that for this this?
No,
vote?
that's the travel.
Okay.
Did it let us vote? Okay.
All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right. Ty, do we need a second before the next item? Okay. Okay, we're down to item 6.04, approval of JPS Health Network interlocal agreement. Were there any questions on this item?
I just wanted some clarification that we do something similar like with Cook Children's too, right? This is just adding JPS as another resource.
Yeah, this was a new resource that was authorized this year, and so for us to participate, we had to have board approval. So this would be just another resource that the counselors and the Julia's team can use for the students.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further discussion? All right, I'll accept a motion.
I move that the board approve the JPS Health Network interlocal agreement as presented.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. The board approves the JPS Health Network's interlocal agreement as presented. Please vote. And that motion passes. All right, we are down to reports and presentations. Were there any questions on disbursements? All right, item 7.02, district benchmark assessment. Dr. Norgard.
Good evening. So the third time I'm coming to talk to you about tests, and we finally hit the tests that are familiar, because I've been taking the opportunity to teach you about some new assessments we were using. This time we are back with our DBAs that you're used to hearing about, so I think you'll see familiar charts and graphics. So this presentation includes interim data related to these quality indicators related to our students' performance on MEETS grade level and also master's grade level. Before we get to the data, I want to set a little context, because when we look at year-to-year history, it's important to remember what might have been happening in some of those years. So similar to when I talked about Reading 3D and our reading map, reminding you that in 1920, we were implementing new TEKS and new instructional materials and only got 2/3 of the way through the year. So that was definitely a year that we were growing and looking at making changes with the curriculum. So that was happening in that year. Last year, for the grade 7 reading DBA that's in here, that was the first time we had given a fall reading DBA in 7th grade. We talked about this last year, but just to remind you, because we've previously had those separate writing tests at 4th and 7th grade, 7th grade we were giving 2 writing DBAs and only 1 reading. But as we knew we were moving away from the separate tests and towards integrated tests, our ELA department had decided last year that really we needed 2 DBAs in reading as well. Well, so that means instead of the first DBA of the year for reading happening in March, it happened in October. So that makes a difference when we're looking at where students are. And in the history, I am only including our students that tested with us in the traditional environment. So here are our last 4 years of grade 7 reading DBA 1, but you see where I pointed out both the year we had new TEKS and the year when that date changed from giving it in March to giving it in October. So if you look, considering that there are different factors intervening each year, new TEKS and new materials, 2-point drops, that could maybe be explained looking at that compounding variable. Moving the test forward 5 months, little drops, they're testing 5 months earlier. This year, we know we're recovering. But the fact is, even if we can explain each of those separately, this is 3 years of red arrows. So we need to look closely at this data. So while no single year drop was huge, it is, when you look back to where we've been, we've got some drops that we need to really take a look at. These are the end of year performance objective targets that we should be hitting based on last year's 7th graders, how they performed at the end of the year. So those are our targets. So in this chart, you can see how we've grown across a year because we've had these interrupted years or different amounts of DBAs. Really, when you look back to last year's 7th graders, that 2021 school year, that's when you can actually see from DBA 1 to DBA 2 to STAR, the purple being approaches, the blue is MEETS, and the green is masters. See how we typically grow and make gains each time we administer an assessment. And so then the far right, the 21, 22, those stripes, those are our targets. So you can see the kind of growth we need to get from where we are here at DBA 1 to where we expect to be at a minimum by the end of the year. So those were different groups of 7th graders over the year. Here's this year's 7th graders. And how have they done over the years? So we can go all the way back to 3rd grade reading for them. We see fairly typical pattern of growing across a year, and then you move into a new grade and it kind of dips back down, and then you grow back across that year. And we did not have any STAR data on these students in 5th grade. But when you look at where they're starting off their 7th grade year compared to where they ended their 6th grade year. So if you look at that 6th grade STAR to crossing this last line into the 21-22 school year, really at MEETS and masters, looking strong. We didn't see the drop off of, summer happened, we've got to start lower and build back up. So we're starting from a good position for this group of students at MEETS and masters. We just need to grow from here. So what's happening in 7th grade? Well, We've talked with the elementary that like some second grade teachers are now having to teach parts of phonics that might have normally been taught in kindergarten because of the gaps. We are now having junior high teachers that are not used to teaching students how to read. They're just teaching students how to use their reading in different ways and working on comprehension, applying to different kinds of texts. There is a test that I do not report on with the board, but is required of us for any of our students who did not pass or did not take their 6th grade reading STAR. They take a Texas Middle School Fluency measure. This is part of our screening that we do for all students. Kindergarten, we screen all students for dyslexia, and then in 7th grade, this is a measure that we use with those students. And we are seeing more students at that decoding level. Decoding are words I use to you when we're talking about reading 3D, not junior high. So this is a different kind of problem and gaps than we have seen historically that's happening. So that's different for these teachers. I mean, maybe a 2nd grade teacher needs to learn some kindergarten skills, but when a 7th grade teacher needs to learn how to do 2nd grade level kind of decoding, that doesn't come naturally. We need to provide training for them. And so we actually had, I set up coming, but because I wrote this last week, but we last week also had our district professional development. So we've actually already offered this first piece of professional development for those intervention teachers, really focusing on those early reading skills. How do you teach students to read when all along you've been working on how to use their reading in different ways? And we'll continue to offer some training for those teachers because they're being faced with challenges they have not had before.
So that's training for interventionists, not for the classroom teachers.
At junior high, our interventionists are our classroom teachers. We have for math and for reading, students identified for the intervention have that 2nd hour. So they have one class period of English and one class period of reading intervention, but it is with a fully certified teacher. For junior high, we're able to work that way. So it is someone they see daily. It is their regular teacher for that class. We were able to add some of those sections with our ESSER funds this year. We also had a large turnover this year in 7th grade ELA and those reading intervention classes. We have on average 3 to 4 7th grade teachers per campus. We have 8 new 7th grade teachers, across the 5 junior high campuses. So that's a lot, which also they need training, opportunities to learn. Some of them may have, doesn't mean they're all brand new teachers, but they're new to teaching 7th grade. So we need to be sure that they're having those opportunities, our curriculum previews, whatever other professional development opportunities we need to provide for them so that they are fully familiar with the expectations for 7th grade, the struggles, the misconceptions, things that will help move that focus along. Grade 7 ELA, just like we mentioned that we're moving from 2 separate tests to this reading-writing connection. So that's also something that's happening is instead of, here I'm going to read passages and respond to those questions on a reading test, and over here you're going to ask me to write about something and I write. Now I'm going to read a passage and you're going to ask me something about what I just read, and I'm responding to that in writing. So that's also a curriculum change that we're working on to help students see how to bring those 2 pieces together. So when we look at 8th grade, yes, sir.
Go back 2 slides.
Yes, sir. 2 slides, you said?
One more.
One more.
I appreciate this snapshot. This looks great. Am I to understand that these are kids all the way from 3rd grade? From 3rd grade to current, right?
This is the same cohort of kids. Now, of course, some move in and move out. I mean, these are,
And that's my question. Does that include the transient kids as well in this graph, or no?
this graph is taken from our district level reports. Like I go back to the 17-18 reports and look at the 3rd graders that we had at that time. So there is some movement
Okay.
within there.
So forgive me for asking a second way. I'm just trying to get my brain around it. It does include all of our kids in this graph? I mean, including those that are coming in and out, not just
If they've been with us since 3rd grade, they're in here. If
Okay.
we had a student that was in a different district until 6th grade, they're going to show up in this graph, starting in 7th grade.
Got it.
Because I'm taking this from whoever was in our district in 3rd grade in 17-18 and our 4th graders in 18-19. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank
So
you.
there is some variation, but this is our best representation.
That's what I was getting at. Thank you.
Anything else about 7th grade? Okay, eighth grade. So eighth grade also had those new materials, but actually held even and some improvement at masters that first year of the new TEKS. Had drops last year, as we did in virtually all of our subject areas, but they are rebounding this year. And for eighth grade, this has always been an October test. So we're looking at testing the same time of year as I'm looking at these different years, different groups of eighth graders. But we see that we are starting to recover that and bounce back from where we were at this point in the year with our eighth graders last year. And when you look at the targets, particularly at meets and masters, this is where we want to be minimum. By the end of the year, we want to be hitting these targets based on our performance objectives report. And here's what you can see, more bars on this one, less interruption with this particular group, where we can see across a year, different groups of eighth graders, but how they tend to grow from DBA 1 to DBA 2 and up to STAR. So when you look at that far right column, here's where we are at DBA 1, and particularly at meets and masters. Masters were 1 point away. So we get those incremental gains. Hopefully, let's get larger incremental gains with these interventions that we're going to put in place. But we're well on track for those goals with our eighth grade reading. Little more up and down. This group of eighth graders did not test STAR when they were in sixth grade. And so, but you can see those of you that have heard me give reports for a long time remember sixth grade reading we've talked about before. And in fact, one year we were also giving CBA reports for sixth grade because we were seeing something happening in our sixth grade reading. So that's that sharp decline you see as students cross from fifth to sixth grade. But you can see this group has continued to grow since then, once we got them in sixth grade, and they grew across the rest of their sixth and their seventh grade year. So dipping down from where they ended their seventh grade year, but ready to grow and reach those targets. Some reminders with eighth grade. So what we're doing is working, so let's keep doing that. But in addition, we will no longer have multiple administrations of grade 8 reading. You know, fifth and eighth, math and reading, we've always had up to 3 administrations for students to show their success under the Student Success Initiative. But when we took out those multiple administrations, it also changed when we test, because we used to test fifth and eighth grade earlier so that there was a second opportunity to test before school even got out. So without those multiple administrations, what we've done is the first time they take the test has moved more in line with all the other grades. So that means we have more instruction prior to that test. So also, as we're looking at interventions and all of these kinds of things, we're going to be intervening on this DBA data, not waiting to get the first round of STAR and then seeing who we need to help be successful on the second round of STAR. And again, I just added the note that written responses to reading passages is also going to become part of eighth grade. I mean, it's all of it. Third through eighth grade, writing doesn't sit separately. We are going to read and write together. Questions about eighth grade? All right.
Yeah. Any questions at all? All right, thank you.
I'll be back next week, or next time. No, next week.
Great. All right, now we're ready for our report on college and career readiness. Ms. Long. Okay.
Yes, college, career, military readiness. So some of the slides are very hard to see, so I actually made copies of the data, and that's what's in your folder. The quality indicators, so it will include Goal 1, student achievement, quality indicator 1.5, which is college, career, and or military readiness, and our success measure of 100% of graduates will be college, career, military ready. Also goes along with the board goals of House Bill 3 in evaluating and improving student outcomes. So the first chart you have in your folder is from 2018 to 2021, and I'm just going to show you these numbers and talk about it briefly on this slide, but then the next few slides and the information in your packet will show you where these numbers came from. So this is just a snapshot of the scores that our district has received. So in 2018, Our STAR performance was a 60. That's a raw performance score, so the state has a calculator that we use to put our STAR scores in, and then it would, you know, sprinkle its magic TEA dust on it, and we would have a raw component score of a 60. And then college career military readiness, under the 2018 to 20 rules, we got 59 raw score, and military was 2% of that, and CTE coherent sequence of courses was 2% of that. Those numbers are important because of what happened 2 years after that. And so our college career military readiness raw score was a 55, and our graduation rate in 2018 was 98.5. It's also important to remember that all of this is 1 year prior, so our accountability in 2018 was talking about the 2016-17 graduates. Okay, so this is all after the fact, right? So in 2019, you can see we went up in our coherent sequence of courses, and the next slide will show you that in that year, the amount of courses that were approved, it went from 73 courses to 245 courses that were on that list of approved through TEA. And so our number jumped drastically there. So you see here, and the reason, so in 2020, our college career military readiness score was a 73. And it looks really good. We came from 59 in 2018 to 73 in 2020. But we wanted to show you we're really on track at the bottom, the 55, 55, 57, 57. We're growing just a little bit in the college career military readiness. And what we did to show you, because the rules changed across the board, and what changed is they took out military enlistment and the CTE coherent sequence of courses, and that's why it's on this form this way, because if you take the 73 in 2020 and subtract out the 4% for military and subtract out the 12% for coherent sequence, that gives you a 57. So it's just to show you if you take out those two percentages, kind of across the board where we were in 18, 19, 20, and 21 without those two indicators in the system. And so for college ready, we actually have 3 basically categories of things that we'll include for college ready. That's our TSI testing, this Texas Success Initiative. Thank you, it's right here on the screen. And APIB, so Advanced Placement and their International Baccalaureate classes, and then our dual enrollment courses. And then for career ready, all there is under that category is industry-based certifications. So that's why it's important to note that we went from 73 to 245, and we're still on that list of 245. So basically the state came out and said, these are your approved. We might have more than what's on that list, and we don't offer all 245 of them either. But we might have something, but it's not necessarily on TEA's approved list. So they came out with 245 that they would give credit for. So this is let me go to this one. This is the second sheet in your folder. And this basically over time just shows you how it's changed. So I'm going to point out just a couple of things. On the first column is basically how you could earn a point. So for CCMR, it's every kid, you really can earn more points. So if I had an AP class that I scored a 3 or higher on my AP exam, and I was enrolled in a dual enrollment course, I really hit the area in 2 times, but I only get 1 point counted for the district, right? So for accountability, you only get the 1 point. After that, it's kind of like, great, that's great for you, but it only counts as 1 point for the district. So any of the criteria that they meet, that's a positive point for accountability for the district. So the changes over time in 2019, if you look at number 5 in that column, and this was talked about already, we went from 73 to the next year, 245. Also, earned a level 1, from 2018 accountability to 2019, those 3 things were added on the chart. So completing an on-ramps course, dual enrollment course, graduate under an advanced degree plan, for be identified as a current special ed student, and then earn a level 1 or 2 certificate. So those 3 criteria were added in the 2019 accountability, and that's why it's blank on the 2018 accountability. Just sort of shows you the changes over time. In the 2020 accountability, it went up to 245 classes, and also at the bottom of the chart, the CTE coherent sequence of courses started out at 85 courses in 2018, jumped to 104 courses in 2019, and it's up to 229 courses in 2020. But if you'll notice in 2021, there's a blank there, okay? So it wasn't included in 2021 accountability, which we're talking about 1920 graduates. So that's why the blank is there. Also in 2020, on number 7, enlisted in the armed forces, that was temporarily suspended. And there was a lot of talk at TEA. They've told us for 2 years now that they're going to have our numbers, military numbers, and they discovered that the military doesn't necessarily give them what they want when they want it. So the military is saying no, and they're in a back and forth right now with getting the data from the military, because in the past, the only way we would get the data is if a kid actually came back and said, I've joined the Air Force or I've joined the Army. They don't have to come back and tell us those things. But it was an indicator in our accountability system. And so everybody in the state was saying, well, we're relying on these kids to come back and tell us because you're holding us accountable for that information. Well, we'll get it from the armed forces. That's not happened yet. So it's still in talks with TEA about getting that from the armed forces. So that was suspended in 2021 accountability. Also in 2021, the half point went away. So before, if you met a coherent sequence of courses aligned with an IBC, then you could earn a half a point. And those half a points went away. So it's either 1 point or no points now.
All right,
And then,
Can we,
sorry, yes.
let's see, it's been a while since we've gone over this report, so I'm trying to remember
Yeah.
all the things that we've learned before about where these points come from and how they correspond. And, we can see the, year-to-year numbers, but what are we comparing those to in terms of what gets us our accountability rating?
So that's the next page.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay.
I went backwards. I was trying to show you the changes and then show you what we're left with in 2022.
Okay.
Sorry. So in the last thing for 2022 accountability is still enlisted in the armed forces is temporarily suspended still. And then also they are talking about coming back with a completion of a CTE program of study. So that's for 2022 accountability based on the 2021 graduates, and it is November of 2021. We still don't know how that's going to happen.
Gail, just
Yes,
for
sir.
clarification, would you explain what it means by a coherent sequence
Oh,
of courses?
I might have to enlist Carla's help. Joe, you want to take that one? It's not testing.
Yeah, 'cause I
No,
think that's
the
important.
coherent sequence, the program of study that they're talking about adding is replacing what we used to refer to as the coherent sequence. And so they have to take certain CTE classes that culminate in that upper level classes that they can take that senior year. And so that program, if they do add that, we had a lot of kids, and we actually had sent information down to the legislature to talk about that also, because we have a lot of kids who complete a program, but there's not a test aligned for what they're studying. And so if the only way in CTE is the industry-based certification, without the coherent sequence or the program of study, it removes the kids where there's not a test aligned for them. And so we've been lobbying to see that come back, because such as our aerospace kids, there's not a program for them to test in the industry-based certification, even at the upper levels.
But if they take the 3 courses.
If they take the courses and then
Take it in the right order, then they, in the past, would have gotten credit.
they would have gotten,
Taking
A half
the
point.
coherent sequence of courses in aerospace.
yeah, that we would have gotten the half point. We are hoping this will be a full point for the full completion of that.
And that's really the only option. They're not bringing back the half-point option. It's either going to be, yes, your course completion of study will count as a point, or no, it's not going to.
And those decisions are made by the TEA or by the SBOE?
Great question. Can I get back to you? I honestly don't know that, but I will find out. Okay.
That would help a lot in
Okay. In
advocating.
okay. I will, I will find out tomorrow, and I will email that to you. Okay, so to get to the point of, well, where's my last chart? Okay, here we go. So in 2022, accountability, to meet the CCMR requirements, right, we want every student to get our 1 point for us. So across the top of this page, you will see the 1 through 11, and those are all the different ways to get, so they have 11, right now they have 9, 10 and 11 are question marks because of things that aren't decided yet. But right now, they have 9 definite ways to earn a point for CCMR. And if you'll notice, column 1 is very large, and it's because to meet TSI requirements, so TSI is the test that they take to enroll into college to decide if they have to take remedial courses or not. And so to take the TSI, they have to meet a certain criteria. The minimum requirement is at the top row of each one of those. And they have to meet the requirement for TSI in both reading and math in order to earn that 1 CCMR point. So look, also I didn't point out earlier, everything colored in yellow is a data source that is not PEIMS. So it's not something that we report through PEIMS. It's another vendor or source of data. And then everything in purple is something that comes from PEIMS that we're responsible for reporting. So the other way to meet TSI is to a college prep for ELA and a college prep for math. And again, for that point for TSI, it must be both reading and math. The kid must meet it in order to earn that point. The second way to get a point is to meet AP or IB criteria, which for AP, it's greater than or equal to a 3 on that AP test, so a 3, 4, or 5, and for IB, greater than or equal to a 4. So that's, I'm just going across this first column, very tiny on there. And then the data source is College Board or the IB, and then it's the time period, it shows you all of the school years that they can test for that point. So anytime that they're basically in high school. And then the fourth one is on-ramps, to complete an on-ramps course that we actually don't currently have in HEB. The fifth way to earn a point is dual course credit. And so that's to get greater than or equal to 3 hours of dual course credit in ELA or math, or greater than 9 hours of dual course credits accumulated across subjects. So they can take 3 for math and a history and a science or whatever, and they get the 9 total hours. So that will get them a point for, again, they only need 1 point in all of high school, okay? The sixth way to earn a point is through an IBC. So if they actually, like Joe was talking about, if they actually have a test at the end of their CTE courses where they get a certification, an industry-based certification, and if they earn that industry-based certification while in high school, then that would count as a CCMR point. The seventh way is to earn an associate's degree prior to graduating high school. Number 8 is an IEP grad for workforce readiness. So these are students that don't graduate on the credits plan, they complete their IEP. So they're IEP graduates essentially. It's a very small number of our students, and so and they're workforce ready, so they could earn a point for us. And the 9th way is special ed advanced grad plan. For special ed, it's if they receive an endorsement or a distinguished level of achievement graduation. And then number 10, it has a question mark because this is what Dr. Harrington talked about, is the CTE program of study. The state has not, it's still to be determined if it's going to be applicable for the last year's graduates or not. And then number 11 is the one, armed forces, that they are still up in the air about because they don't have the data. So from the Department of Defense. So there are 9 definite ways right now for them to earn a point. Are there any questions about the 9 different, does that answer your question, Mr. Romero?
Partially. So every student can only earn 1 point, correct, through their entire high school career?
They can complete as many of those as
Well, they can do
happens,
as many,
but
but
they
it
only
only
count
count-
for us positively one time.
So they're considered that they've met the college and career military readiness if they meet one of these things. So a kid in 9th grade who gets a 3 or better on their AP exam, they've met it.
Correct.
Okay.
So you can have a freshman sitting on campus right now that's already met it, and when they graduate, we will get that positive point for accountability.
Yeah, before they even get to the high school.
Before they even get there, because 9th grade is considered high school for.
All right, what other questions do we have?
What is on-ramps? Said we don't have it, I'm just
We
curious.
don't have it.
On-ramps is basically a dual, it's a dual credit class offered through UT Austin. It uses your own teachers to actually teach the dual credit class, but then it's facilitated by a UT Austin teacher. It was originally fully paid for by the legislature. We were actually looking at it, and they removed that funding, and so the cost was then going to not allow us to implement it.
Got it.
So it's a different variation of a dual course.
It's a dual credit
course. All right, any other questions?
So,
Well-
I'm sorry.
Well, Ms. Long, I have one quick question, and it may put us back a bit. Thank you for printing these out. This is awesome. It's good to read. On this first sheet that you showed us, on closing the gap, and it's only because I just looked for abnormalities. Graduation status and closing the gap in 2019, we got 90% in 2018, 30% in 2019. We have our COVID year, and then back to 90%. Is that a misprint, or what's the deal for the 30%?
I'm going to say, I hope it's a misprint, Mr. Campos.
That's what I'm
but,
hoping too. That's what I was asking.
This is automatically generated, so I'm going to go
Okay.
check on that.
Okay,
It says 30%. We went from 90 to 30 to 90.
okay,
I'm going to go with something's wrong with that system, and I
Awesome.
will get you the correct answer.
no problem, just checking.
Thank you for letting me know of that. Okay. I would say that is not accurate. We definitely had more than 30% graduation status. Yikes.
So so let me just make sure I understand like the gist of this. Is our expectation that we'll know about numbers 10 and 11 prior to when the final score comes out? Or are we just gonna be?
It is our expectation, but it is not definite. If they're going to count it, they will definitely come out and they will maybe do a what if kind of a thing, is like, if it's counted, here's what you would get, and if it's not counted, here's what you would get. That's another option for them to do. So the honest answer is we really don't know if it's going to
It will
come
be
out.
a shame,
It would be a shame.
because
yes.
it won't just be HEBISD that is, being held accountable to something that is, not really a relevant representation.
Correct. That has definitely been expressed from the testing world to them. The other thing is, and to her point, we have, I don't know why this slide is messed up. We actually, because this data is kind of all after the fact. If you notice, it's last year's graduates. So we can't even, knowing this, what we know right now, we can't even do anything about the data that's going to hit us in May, right? Because it was last year's graduates. They're already gone. They've already done what they did and move on. We do have a tracking system. We have a program in this district. It's called On Data Suite, where our PEMS and testing people, special ed people use it. This is just one of the reports that they built this year. And I say these are all after the fact because this just happens, but we do have a way to track it along the way. So I'm working with the principals this year to look at their data, starting with their freshmen, so that they can kind of track all along, is this kid on track to meet one of those points? Or what kids are not on track to meet these points, and what can we get them into to make sure that they get their CCMR point for graduation. And so this is just an example of the page of one of the reports. So it's the early warning system, the first one, the CCR early warning system. And so that right now I can go into and I can tell you where a kid has already earned a point from 9th grade, what 12th graders hasn't earned a point yet. They're going to graduate this year. So we have some system in our district that allows us to look at it as we go. And it's data updated every time we put a file in to this system. This one? Yeah, so we talked about what can we do to raise our CCMR score in the district. And one of the easiest ways is for us to encourage our greater enrollment in our dual enrollment and college prep courses. Because that's, a large portion of how to get the CCMR points. And then we talked about adding a Microsoft certification test to all of our students. I know that Dr. Harrington and his team has been talking about that for a little while, because if we got everybody certified in Microsoft Office, then that would be their certification. Right. And then that would be everybody that took that course and took the certification, you know, they would have their point there. Yes, through the BIM classes, so. It's just a couple of ways that, when we talked, that we thought to raise our CCMR score. Along with tracking it now with the high school principals along the way, so that they're not hit with seniors of, oh, this kid didn't take anything, you know, because right now let's get them the TSI if they can take it. Let's get them, you know, if they're in a dual enrollment course, make sure that they're passing that, you know, making the credit score that they need to make on those tests to get that credit.
So that was my question. If we have seniors that have been identified that haven't earned a point at all, how aggressive is it to get the counselors to get them in a class or a certification to be able to earn us a point?
Yeah, I would think it'd be even earlier than that. I mean, if
Well,
a
we-
kid
yeah.
hasn't earned it by the time they're a junior, then there's something going on that we need to address with
Yeah,
that
and
student.
both high schools have been administering the TSIA test to the students. Right now, based on the system, that is one of the problems with the system, though, and the bulk of our numbers are coming out of our college-bound students. With the removal of the coherent sequence, it has dramatically reduced the ability for students to earn certification on the CTE side, because if they're not set up in a system that has an improved industry-based certification test, then they don't have an opportunity to earn it. So those students, again, would only be able to earn their point on the college-bound side.
Yeah,
And
but
another thing that our district has done is we started, was it just last year? All the last 4 years have rolled into one.
Understood.
We give SAT school day now, so they don't have to come on a Saturday, they don't have to pay for it independently, so we give it to all juniors during the school day at the district's cost. So every junior takes the SAT, so hopefully some of those kids will meet the criteria here on the SAT math, the greater than or equal to 530 on the math to also earn that CCMR point. So I think we will pick up a good number of kids there for the SAT that you know, either couldn't take it or just didn't come on a Saturday. A lot of our kids work and have a lot of band and athletic conflicts on the weekends, so they're
Yeah.
not able to come and take that. So everyone has the opportunity to take it as an 11th grader here.
And Dr. Harrington, you said both high schools. I'm assuming then that the Keys graduates are not included in this number.
They're not, they would be included. They also have the opportunity in TSIA over at the Keys, so they test over there. So they are included in the whole number. They have limited opportunity. Again, their best way is the college-bound side also.
Wow.
Gail, I have a question. You know,
Yes.
as we're talking about trying to increase our numbers of CCMR students, I'm trying to make sure I understand where we are. And I'm looking at your handout on this one.
Okay?
So when we're looking at the raw component score for 2021, and we have a CCMR raw component score of 57, what does that raw score translate insofar as our percentage? Because our goal is 100. What does a raw score of 57 show us as far as percentage of students who are CCMR?
Great question. It's low, that's what it means. 57, I think it's 57%. I need to look that up to verify. Of the senior class graduating.
Okay, so a raw component score equals a percentage. We're
Percentage
talking
for
about out of
this.
100 here?
Of the graduating seniors.
Okay, so,
Yes.
so right now, we're at 57% of graduating seniors meet CCMR.
Yes.
Okay. So when we're looking at the 1 through 10, maybe 11 ways they can get a point, are there, of these, are there one or two that jump out to you where we're racking up most of our points? I mean, are there some of these that we should really be funneling students to because they're easier than some of the other ones, or are we earning our points, you know, and fairly spread out among these 10 or 11?
They are not spread out. I wish I brought that form with me. I do have a
Well,
data form
I know.
that has that.
It is predominantly, like I said, on the college side, but here's what we are anticipating is that we see the industry-based certifications go up as they have dramatically increased some of the certifications. And they've changed some, like the automotive certifications were not achievable. The system, the levels they wanted, we were never going to get them, but the state came back and changed. So now our kids are sitting for tests in automotive. Our kids in automotive had no opportunity because just the way it was set up, the level of certification they wanted were guys that were about to go to work for Chevy. And our kids aren't going to be at that level, but they need to be at that entry level. Now they've changed what tests they can take. So now those kids are going to be sitting for a test. So we anticipate the numbers on our CTE side are going to start increasing. That coherent sequence, the completers, programs of study, I'm sorry, they've changed that name every other year. That's going to be a key piece to honor those kids, but then it also, those kids, then it gives them focus to really stay through those programs all the way to the highest level, and they'll count. So that's an area. Gail mentioned the Microsoft certifications. Microsoft certification is a good thing for those kids that are in those BIM classes to make sure that we are studying for those and get that. A lot of our ninth graders, our junior highs have been very successful at passing those tests and getting those kids to certification. So we actually do have a large number of ninth graders who have already met the criteria and have at least one of their check marks.
Yeah, so the 57%, that doesn't include any of the CTE or any of the military, right?
Correct.
Because those don't count for us right now.
Correct.
Only the industry-based certification tests.
Okay, so going back 2020, the number was 73, then you take those out and you end up at 57, which is where we are now. So, I mean, even 73 isn't great. But, yeah, in my mind, if we're waiting until the senior year, that's too late. Because if someone hasn't done one of these things on this list of 10 different options, by the time they get to their senior year, that shows a distinct lack of engagement in their own education. And, if we see a kid that hasn't done any of these things by the time they're junior, it seems like we need to.
I was going to say, I said senior year, I think I was a little misleading. We're right now looking at the seniors right this second because we have to get them right before graduation. And then they're looking at the 9th, 10th, and 11th graders as they go on. But so right now, the immediate look at is the 12th graders because before they graduate.
And then the on-data suite, having the on-data suite data is going to be, Bob Knapp actually had built us a program that we were using. It was just, we had to build it ourselves so we could track their progress as we were looking for, and we were charting that on that college-bound side because that's where we had clear data that we could track. How many of the kids were what we refer to exempt in reading and math, and whether it's TSAI, IA, SAT, or ACT.
Yeah, and, we understand that these points are the data system, that's how we're held accountable, but we just want to make sure that kids are actually getting the opportunities to do stuff that they can actually use when they graduate. And so if we're waiting till their senior year, it might be too late to get them into a CTE class that'll do them good after they graduate or get them on the right path, so.
Also should be doing it early on, when they were doing the endorsements in 8th grade, that was probably helping.
And that's been the talk, especially with the programs of study. We have to, it gets very important that we make some decisions, that those 8th grade decisions, we know they don't always stay true, but if we really work hard at getting that decision and getting them on that right path, then they have the time to complete that.
Yeah, so just like all the data, whether it's the DBAs or any other data we look like, it only does us good if we do something with it. So, I think this is a good way to be able to look forward and do something for our kids.
Mr. Brown, to answer your original question, I have a sheet that I will send the entire board that has the percentage of each indicator that we earned last year. So to break down every single indicator, the one that we have the most control over is the coherent sequence of courses, and because of those are things we schedule. So getting them to take the SAT, unless it's a junior that we give it to, we don't control them coming on a Saturday to take the test. So that's just one area that we have more control in. But I do have those percentages for every single one of the indicators, and I will send it to you all.
Thank you.
I think that's what you were asking
Yes,
for.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions at this time? All right, thank you. All right, now we're into items for the regular board meeting. 8.01, Local Instructional Materials Committee. Were there any questions for Dr. Norgard? No? All right, 8.02, Campus Improvement Plans. Dr. Harrington, do you have anything you want to present?
You know, per Chapter 11 of the Texas Education Code, we do submit our campus plans for board approval each year. So you've been given the summaries, and both assistant superintendents of elementary and secondary, their offices have copies of all of the complete plans also.
And I want to make just one comment on that because we're doing something a little different for you this year. So inquiring minds, if you would like to know, since we have your folder set up in Google, we're going to go ahead and put the complete plans for each of the campuses in Google. So you have, your set up for your board goals. So when you go into that folder, there'll be a subfolder and it'll say campus plans. Open that folder up. Then there'll be another subfolder will say secondary and elementary. And within that, we'll have each campus plan because you might want to take a little more detailed look and be able to drill down some we've never given you. Access hasn't been as easy. You've always had to come up to the office and look. And now that we have that Google folder set up for you, we felt like we could make that easily available to you. So we wanted to give you access to that.
Mr. Chapman, this is all new technology for the board that we're adapting to and getting to use. Can you make sure that all board members, can you check in with everyone and make sure that everyone's able to access all the information? Because I know there's been some issues with people getting online and.
Yes, absolutely. And if you have any challenges, if you'll let Ty know, we'll get somebody to work with you and to get you all set up. That's no problem. Information services. If we need to, we'll send a tech out to your home to get you set up and work with you because we want you, if you want access, we want to be sure you have access to your Google folder because that is going to be, if we can get that working well for us, going to be a great way to share information back and forth with one another.
Andy said earlier he needed help. These are helpful to me because when I'm visiting campuses, I keep the picture roster that we have of the principals and assistant principals, and I print these out and put that in that folder, that notebook, and I keep it in my car. So when I'm visiting a campus, I can look at, I know the principals, but sometimes I don't know the assistant principals, but this gives me just a quick, like, hey, how are you doing on this? Or, just some good talking points, I think, when we're visiting campus.
And really with, with the gap that we've been talking so much about, really being able to look at and see in more detail the needs assessment for each of the campuses and kind of how they're addressing the gap, I think might be beneficial for you. So you will have that detail this year.
All right, any other questions on the campus improvement plans? All right, next item, financial statements for the month of August. Mr. Williams.
Good evening. I present to you the financial statements for the month ending August 31st, 2021. This is also the ending statement for our 19-20-21 fiscal year. And looking on this first page, and Ty's going to help me drive this thing. You can see that we have down towards the bottom of that page, you can see that we had a revenues for the year of $224,735,205 and expenditures of $204,031,385, resulting in an ending fund balance of $142,869,341. More importantly, that represents revenues over expenditures of $20.7 million. So we did really well for the 19-20-21 school year. And this also is, keep in mind, we had hold harmless funds that were, our state funds were reduced by that. So if you'll flip to the next there, you can see in the revenue column, the yellow, far right yellow year-to-date column, you can see we did really well on tax collections at 100.9%. Interest income, we did better than budgeted. We did fall a little short in athletic revenue, but that can be expected with
COVID.
last year. All the others, tuition fees, all that, we ended up for total local interim out of state at 101.22% of revenue. State programs, we did fall short in what was budgeted in the state funding program. Again, that is due to the hold harmless, TEA reducing our state funding due to the hold harmless calculation for last year. But overall, we did really well. We still hit 99.8% revenues. And then moving down to, it's going to be page 4. Yeah, there you go, Ty. You can see in the detail, expenditure detail, we did have one negative variance for supplies and health care. That was due to desk shields, I believe. That was for the month. And then in function 34, we also had a negative variance of 224,869, which was reclassing funds for bus purchases, is what that was for. And that was it really for the month. We ended up, and the year, we ended up doing really well for the 1920-21 school year. So any questions on any of that? All right, we will move on to the Wrestler report. And looking at that report, you can see that payroll is representing 89% of our budget at $170,881,813 for the year, which is, like I said, typically runs about 87, but because of lower spending in some other areas, it pushed that percentage up a little more for last year. Coming in second, our second highest expenditure there is in function 51, maintenance and operations for utilities, $4.2 million there, and then third highest expenditure would be in instructional supplies in $2.744 million. Okay, moving to food service. Food service did really well last year also. They actually had revenues over expenditures of $1.521 million. So kudos to Mariella and her crew. And keep in mind, they're doing this shorthanded. They're still about, I checked with her today, they were around down 30, 31 people still. So they're, of course, that helps account for some of the excess expenditures a little lower because of those salaries too. So it kind of all works out. But as you can see, the fund balance there at year end was $6.382,346, and nothing significant in the detail there to report. Moving to the debt service fund, fund balance there is $12,980,677. That represents revenues over expenditures of $911,752. And then you see the detail under that that matches up the 911,753 there. So moving to pre-K CK program, fund balance at the end of the year was $20,015 and $20,015. That does show revenues over expenditures of $97,185, but keep in mind we did transfer some funds to cover that last year in the amount of $250,000. So just keep that in mind when you see that positive revenue variance. However, moving forward, I think that program is doing very well this year. I think they're loaded up full, and should recover this year very well. No negative variances or anything significant to report in that detail either. Moving to the special revenue funds and campus activity funds. Of course, special revenue funds are federal, state, local grants that are designed to be self-sufficient. They're basically an in-out budget. We get what we get and we spend what we get. So nothing there. That ended up with a positive as well. So good shape on all our special revenue funds. Nothing significant to point out there. Campus activity funds, this hadn't really changed a whole lot throughout the year. Of course, not many fundraising activities last year, so The expenses were greater than the revenues by $205,557, but like I say, there were no fundraising activities last year. That too should change in the current year moving forward. Looking at the 2018 bond funds, that fund balance, $33,274,517. Of course, if we don't issue bonds or sell bonds, there's really no revenue coming into that account. So the only thing we have is outgoing, the expenditures. So we had expenditures for the year of $18,434,971. And as we discussed at our meeting last week, that we should end up with a little over $20 million in leftover 18 bond funds that we can utilize in other areas. Moving on to the locally defined capital projects fund. That has of course, we just looked at this last week as well at the facilities meeting. Fund balance of $48,431,286. Of course, unless the board puts money into the locally defined, that there are no revenues going to there either. But so the expenditures over revenues last year were $18,344,279, and as you recall from last week's meeting, we still have about $9.4 million of that $48 million that's committed to ongoing projects, particularly at West Hurst. So if you'll remember, we ended up with about $39 million that we could work with, and what we talked about last month, and that is it for the financial reports, unless you have some questions.
Any questions on the financials?
No.
All right, budget transfer amendment request for November 2021.
Get that up, Ty. Okay. If you'll focus on the two green columns there for November proposed budget transfers, the left one, of course, is just a very small, what we call our just normal budget transfers for the month of $3,500. I believe those are for some handheld radios at some campuses. But looking at that next column to the right, that one, of course, is a much larger number, and that is our annual budget roll forward and transfer request. Each year, if you can kind of scroll down to the bottom, Ty, there you go. See those numbers at the bottom. You can see we allow the campuses to roll forward their unused budgets from the prior year. This, for the most part, I mean, the reason most schools do that is it keeps campuses from going into a spending frenzy at the end of the year to spend funds that they think they're going to lose if they don't spend them. So it's a good way to manage it, help manage a budget and moving forward. So 1.4 million of that was from the, and we only allow up to a 10% max roll forward on that, by the way. 1.4 million of that was the campus department rollover. The other special request rollovers, biggest majority of that is that 3.8 million you see in function 51 up there. That's the 800 funds rollover, which is primarily from utilities and all that, and maintenance will roll that forward, and that's what they use to do big, unexpected, big projects that we do come up on in maintenance. So, and that's the biggest majority of that. The rest of that is primarily due to things that were ordered last year and at the very end of the year because of shipping delays, all the stuff. Some of those are special requests that we approved to go ahead and pay and roll those funds forward out of last year's budget. And surprisingly, we really didn't have that many. It wasn't that many. It's not as many as I would have expected we had, but we did have a few for those. So that's your budget transfer requests.
Any questions on budget transfers?
There'll be on that 5.6 is being rolled over. Is that out of the 20 million that was the revenue over expenditures for the total budget?
Yes, that 20.7 million is what revenue over expenditures for last year. Now, what we will do at some point, probably, I think we usually did it here in August of next year. Once we kind of see how this year's going to end up, we'll take some of those monies and ask the board to move them into, or assign them into the locally defined, or wherever we decide, or wherever the board decides to put those funds. But yes, that 5 point, whatever that was, 6 million, does come out of that 20.7. So it comes out of fund balance, so. Still a good year.
All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Williams. Next item is autonomous floor scrubbers. See Mr. James here, so probably has an
Yes, if
interest in it.
you know, some of these were on the Friday update, but I did ask Mr. James to come in case the board had some questions about what an autonomous floor scrubber is or looks like, or,
I just thought of a big Roomba.
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's a big, fancy Roomba that does a little bit more than just vacuuming.
So this is for 2 of them, correct? And
Yeah, that's for 2.
And
We're hoping, you know, like I said, we're down, like we are in food service, we're down, I don't know the number today for custodial, but Mr. James can probably. 28. So we're hoping that will help in that regard too. But these will be able to be utilized in your big common areas, your cafeterias, your halls, your, you know, all the big areas. And I don't know if Mr. James wants to come add anything to that.
Does it learn the area?
It does.
Like my Roomba does, yeah?
Yes.
Mine does.
Actually, Roomba's
Gotta
kind
get
of
a new
run
one.
around randomly, or the one I have does. This one has a pattern to it. It learns the area, and then they put a, what is that called, a QR code, Jonathan? They put a QR code on that, in that area. It looks at that, it knows
Yeah.
where it is, it positions itself where it's supposed to start, and it runs the exact same.
Yeah, the new ones do that too, yeah.
so my question with 2 is, how does it get moved from campus to campus?
We would move it, we have a van that we would move.
They would
in.
move 'em
It's a
around,
Box,
yeah.
box truck, we could move it from campus to campus. Are these for hallways, gyms? What's it used for? We intend to put one at Buinger, just because of the size of Buinger. We also. Can you come up here?
Come on up here.
We would like to put one at Buinger, because of the size of the Buinger. And I'll tell you right now at Buinger Center, I have 3 custodians that clean that entire building.
Wow.
Custodian could take that machine out, set it against the wall. After we've already recorded the path that it would take, they would turn it on, they could walk away. It runs up to 6 hours. It will text the person, the custodian, when it's finished. So they would text it, they could take it upstairs, start it again. It memorizes, and we can save, you know, different paths. Take it upstairs, turn it back on, walk away, and it would text when it's finished, or if it's run out of gas, it'll let the person know.
You do the room first?
No, we wouldn't use it in a classroom. It's too big for a classroom. But, you know, we wouldn't have to empty, we don't have to move chairs. It'll come up to a chair or an object, it sees it, it'll go around it. And we would. Oh, yeah, it would be after hours. But if a person is standing there, it will stop. So it's not going to run over anybody. It won't run over furniture. It'll move around the furniture. If somebody moved a chair in front of it, it would stop. So,
Have you tested these out? Have you seen them work?
so yes.
Have we tried them at Buinger?
Yes, we tried them at Buinger. We tested 2 machines. This machine that we would like to order can turn left and right. Most of the machines can only make a left-hand turn. So this thing can go down a hall, turn right. It can dip into if there's a little cul-de-sac, it can dip into that cul-de-sac and dip out. It can turn left. It has sensors all over it that allow it to do things that the other scrubber that we looked at can't even close to. This one has one QR code that starts it, can run all over the path that we set for it, and it comes back and sets itself back down, and will stop.
What kind of warranty comes with both of these?
Yeah, I'll just let you know that it has a 3-year warranty on maintenance, the non-wear scrubber parts, the robotic components, and the warranty is for parts, travel, and labor. And then it has the autonomous service. It has data upgrades, software upgrades, and diagnostics for 3 years.
Where'd I get 10 from? told Mr. Brown
Yeah.
10 years on
It's
that.
three,
I might have been mistaken on that.
it's 3 years, but we can purchase extended warranties after that.
That's-
Can be
maybe that's
done.
what it was.
Yeah.
Where are you gonna put the other one?
Plan to start out in Oakwood Terrace. Oakwood Terrace is huge, and I have 2 custodians at Oakwood Terrace. To scrub the floor at Oakwood Terrace behind a scrubber that you're walking behind would take a couple hours a night. We could plug that machine in, take off, and
Go do
take it
something
back
else.
upstairs and with no problem. River Trails could use it. Arbor Creek would be a good place for it. Trinity Lakes, just because of the size of the hallways. Yeah.
Has there been any cost-benefit analysis done on the cost of this robot cleaner compared to what it cost us to bring on a custodian? I mean, is this saving us custodian time and money?
I don't have that information. Mr. Minor would have that information. I don't have that information.
Yeah, I
No,
believe
don't.
Josh
has
did some
that.
studies on that.
Yeah.
and
But
it-
because we're low-end custodians, this will help offset that, I would think.
Excuse-
Because we're low in the number of custodians we have, this will help offset that.
This will help us right now with the custodians, yeah, that we don't have. Yeah.
Yeah. If Josh has got that, if he could provide that to us.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to get with him and see. But I do know he was working on doing all that. And we're just trying to move forward because they're dying.
Yeah.
With the custodial help.
All right, any more questions on the floor scrubbers? All right, 8.06, extension of RFP 18-10, workers' compensation third-party administrator.
Okay, we are self-funded with workers' comp, but we do pay a third-party administrator to administer those claims and do all that. I believe it was 41 something last year. All right, it's gone down. Actually went down, which is kind of unusual. Down to 39, whatever it is in here, 37.5. So.
Okay, any questions on the third-party administrator? All right, RFP 21-09, visual and performing arts supplies.
This is just an RFP, for an annual I
Vendor
believe
list.
this is a renewal, I believe. Is that right?
This is the vendor list.
Yeah,
The vendor list. Okay.
yeah, so this is our annual vendor list of vendors to buy art supplies from.
Yes.
Any question on this?
No.
Where did I get RFP?
All right, any questions on our RFP 21-10 athletic supplies? This is another vendor list for athletic supplies. Any questions on that? All right, 8.09, Edgenuity license. Were there any questions on this item? All right, next item, Go Guardian Beacon site licenses. Questions on this?
So the Go Guardian is only for Chromebooks. It's not for iPads. Is that right?
I'll let Joe speak to that, but I know they're for Chromebooks there you go. Scott's here too.
Scott is here. I can start, and then if we have any other questions. But as of right now, yes, Go Guardian just works with the Chromebooks.
Okay. So I know last time we talked about Chromebooks, we talked about trying to work on the monitoring, the restricting on the teacher side, but also on the parent side. Have we had any success working through that as far as allowing parents to see what's going on the
Not through
Chromebooks?
Go Guardian. Go
Okay.
Guardian, they did have a parent app. We've tried to use it. We had a parent use it. Not very successful for that purpose. Terry and Scott are looking at some other, through Content Keeper, which is the internet with the web filter.
Through Content Keeper or web filter, that's more appropriate because that's where all the web traffic goes through, iOS and Windows or Chrome OS goes through the Content Keeper.
Okay, so there is a parent app, but we found it not to be successful. What?
In Go Guardian, yes. Go Guardian, I mean, our main purpose in Go Guardian is for the teachers to monitor what's going on with their kids, what they're using. They can actually, they can redirect a student So that's the main purpose of Go Guardian. We were looking to see if it could also act as a parent app. At this time, we don't think that's going to be the solution, so we're looking at Content Keeper now.
Okay, so what could Content Keeper do for parents? Like, what would it look like?
Right now, Content Keeper's app is under development. It's very rudimentary. They're trying to, believe, mirror what Lightspeed and different manufacturer of filtering does. And we're just looking at that and waiting for them to come through. Right now, it's in beta.
Okay, do you have any idea when time frame that would be
I do
finished?
not.
Okay. I think that now that we're a one-to-one district and the devices aren't coming home, especially for the young kids, there is concern on what are they doing on these devices all day? How can parents learn about that? How can parents learn what the kids are doing on the devices at school?
Right now, talk to the teacher, have a conversation with the teacher. We don't have an app at this time. And again, that's K1. It's just the iPads.
Well, as a parent of a kindergartner, it's pretty interesting what a kindergartner and a first grader can do on an iPad.
No, what I'm saying, though, is the vast majority of our devices are the Chromebooks. And so the Go Guardian will work for the Chromebook, but not for the iPad. We cannot put it on the iPad.
Okay, okay. Here, help me understand, because I heard you say the Go Guardian doesn't work. Were you talking about the Go Guardian trying to apply it to a parent app to an iPad?
For the iPad,
that
we can't use it at all.
Does it work on the Chromebooks?
So Go Guardian has a parent app that works on the Chromebooks, but it doesn't meet our needs or didn't meet the parents' needs that we've tried it on.
Okay, so it doesn't meet the needs for both the iPads and the Chromebooks.
One of the things I did also talk to Lindsay about, one of the areas of concern is it may show like a website says YouTube, but when you click on it, it's not taking it to where they went, because the YouTube is a dynamic site, and I guess those URLs change. So you think you're going to be clicking to see exactly where they went, but it's just going to take you back to the home page. So we're hoping that there can be some better solution to that, because really that doesn't tell you anything.
Mm-hmm. I hope that we're making this a priority, because there are many parents who want to know what's going on day to day on the devices, who don't want to trouble a teacher to say, hey, what did you do today? But right now there's just no way to know other than asking the kid or asking the teacher, and that's not giving them the full picture. And I think if we're going to be a one-to-one district and we're going to have devices for every kid, we need to be able to tell parents that we know what the kids are doing, and the parents should have a way to know what the kids are doing. So if we can make this a priority to see what other options there are, I would really hope that we do that, because I don't think that we can let this go on much longer without there being a solution.
We can continue to work on that.
All right, any other questions on the Go Guardian or Go Guardian Beacon site licenses? All right, item 8.11, recabling of Bedford and Hardwood Junior High Schools. Were there any questions on this item?
Is this part of what, like when I was at Bedford, I think it was at Bedford Junior High for the Peter Pan production, that Mark Chandler was telling me they were having issues because some of the cabling got cut during construction. Is this for that?
No.
It's different.
That's a different part of the building.
Okay.
That was during the remodel. It was the sound system and lighting system directly in that cafeteria. They're pulling new cable throughout the entire building.
Okay, so not that cabling, but the other cabling in the other parts of the campus.
All right, any other questions on the cabling? Transportation bus purchase.
This is for two 54-passenger special needs buses. I believe they're internationals. I mean, Brian's here if you want to ask him some questions about it.
Yeah, any,
Or ask Mr. Chapman. Either one.
bus guy.
any questions on the bus purchases?
No.
What's that?
snub nose.
No, they're conventionals.
All right, thank you. Library materials for HEB ISD school libraries, year one.
These are replacement of books that were basically lost last year during the shut when we were shut down. They tried to make library books as available as possible to kids, and as a result of that, a lot of those were not returned. Of course, some of those probably were kids that
They needed a book.
they needed a book. They were, and they may be the kids, the 1,000 that we don't know where they ended up, where they landed. It could be a lot of those too. So, but that's what this is for. It's to replace and replenish books that have been lost over the last few years. So.
All right, any questions on the book purchases? All right, news to you, renewal. Any questions on this renewal?
What is this? This I didn't quite understand what it was.
It's a special needs software. I don't know exactly what Joe may know exactly what it's for, but I do know it's used in
Yeah,
special
this was
education.
a request from Patricia. I have to be honest, I can get you more information on it. I do know it's used in the Fosse classroom, ECSC. I believe the homebound teachers also use it. Yep.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we're down to other business. Does any board member want to request an item be placed on a future board agenda? All right. Yeah, where's the board activity? Oh, it's stopped over there. Yeah, it still needs to finish going around, so I'll let that go around here in a second. And I'll take a look at the end of the meeting and talk to anybody if there's anything that needs to be filled in. All right, board goal number 3. Mr. Campos and Ms. Jordan Wells.
Okay, well, I guess I'm starting. So one of the things that Fred and I were charged to do is to work on our advocacy board goal. And in doing so, we're going to give you the option to change if necessary, but we have some assignments for the legislators that you will be working with to advocate. We also have a board goal 3 matrix that has the item that you'll be advocating for, and it would be a way to track each legislator by name for a bill that they are writing or have voted for or against. And so we'll be keeping track of all of that good information. So I'll talk about the breakdown of who's having which legislator, and then Fred will go over and remind us of the process that is in our board operating procedure. So for House Rep Jeff Kaysen, we have Rochelle Ross.
Okay.
U.S. Rep Beth Van Dyne, Chris Brown, Beverly Powell, Dawn Jordan Wells, Matt Krause, Matt Romero. And we're also going to give you your own representative of Giovanni Capriglione. And for Kelly Hancock, Senator Hancock, we have Andy Cargile. And, well, I need you to give me another option. So let me finish reading them, and then you can let me know who you want to switch with. All righty. We have John Cornyn, Rochelle Ross, Pat Hardy, Julie Cole, Ted Cruz, Fred Campos. So which would you like to switch with, Andy?
I can eliminate some for you.
I don't need an elimination, I need a switch.
I'll take Beth or Beverly.
Okay, I will give you,
The other ones I've had conflict when I ran for the state rep.
Okay,
That makes sense.
okay. So, okay. So we'll switch, we'll give you, Beth, and then we'll give Chris Kelly. Will that work? All right, Fred, you're on.
So just to fill in the blanks for our public here, this board takes advocacy very seriously. This is like an upper level type thing. As I work with Leadership TASB, they're all amazed that we even do this kind of work on advocacy. So hats off to you guys. One of the things that me and Dawn have done with your guys' help is, in addition to us having a representative to sort of work with, is we've added this matrix. You have your legislative agenda that's been put together by staff with our input in it, and your job will be to communicate and work with your particular individual. And one of the things we've done is in our board our board operating procedures, which are publicly on our HEBISD. But if you look at it on page 4, we have put together scripts for emails. We've gone over this, but I'll just lightly touch on it. We've also put together talking points. We will provide for you, in addition to your own thought process, both Dawn and I, before the end of the year, will give you maybe 1 or 2 that we will put together a voting way of system doing that, of what particular issue we want to push from time to time. And so we'll have scripts and phones and opportunities for you to follow if you don't know or unfamiliar with how you would talk with your legislators, just to kind of give you as guidelines, just kind of, guardrails of ideas of how you would want to communicate. I think we feel, as you guys do, that public education is something that we should constantly be reminding, communicating, befriending, talking to our legislators about. So hopefully we're providing for you. And this is like everything else that we do, a working document and changes. And we'll be doing some things in the future that will help us zoom in on some things that we want to focus on. So that is on page 4 and 5 of your board operating procedures. Just some tips and scripts to help with this communication. And then finally, not you're going to track every bill or everything, but this gives you a little sheet that maybe perhaps, even if you don't get an opportunity to talk with your particular legislator, to do a little Googling and looking and seeing how they're voting on certain things, just so we can kind of keep track and have talking points ourselves. And then we'll use that as part of our communication going forward to help influence. I think it's a little better if we can actually talk with the legislator, knowing how they voted in the past on particular issues. It helps us to sound more intelligent and communicate more specifically in the areas that we want to do for advocacy. So that's what we've been working on. That's what me and Dawn's champion board goal is for the next year or so. Anything to add, Dawn?
I like the chart.
And on that note, there is some redistricting going on that will take place next year, and that will be revised and handed out to us as that occurs.
My only suggestion would be that rather than just stating the legislator's name, that we actually, like for instance, under Jeff Kaysen, it says District 92. Because the names will change, but the seats won't. Yeah.
Thank you, Julie.
That's the end of our other business, and now we're ready for open forum number 2. Thank you. All right, Ms. Shears? You're not going to speak up for this one? Okay. I thought you wanted to move to the second one. Oh, you're going to wait till next time? Okay. All right. Would you like to speak, Ms. Langston? I would. Okay.
Thank you for hearing me tonight. I was going to speak on the TK education consulting proposal that got moved to next week. The last meeting we had, I prayed against the evil coming in and trying to rebuke anything that has to do with racial stuff. But I think Satan's got a foothold in the door, and I'm just asking you to be very aware about what we're letting in and what we're spending our money on. Just awareness things to make sure that board is aware that some of the books that are on the news now across the nation were found in HEB last week in our libraries. A high school librarian here in our area in HEB had told a visitor that it's probably better or safer that kids learn about anal sex here in school instead of out on the street. It's just very disturbing. I don't want mine to learn about it at all. So I'd hate for them to run across a book accidentally in the library and then see some pictures or read some things that don't even need to be in their minds. We have high school teachers doing surveys, which I think somebody talked about earlier. One question was, what pronoun do you identify with? What parent do you prefer I call? I don't think those are appropriate questions to be asking of our kids. Something that I was proud of being a part of this school district, both as a student and then a teacher, and living here is that HEB was voted the most diverse school district in the nation. I think I go back, last time I spoke about letting old school ways of doing things come back in because they may be the best ways. But one of the things that's great about that, you think about, why do we need to fix something if it's not broken? And I think we have a great school district with a diverse culture, and I'd hate to spend $200,000 on a consulting company when we don't have a problem, so to speak. So just something to think about. Common Core came in, it divided the family, which I think was the plan, an underlying plan. Parents can't help their kids do math. The current 3DR curriculum that I learned about last time and more this time, it's leaving our kids behind, and our teachers are just so overwhelmed. I just hate that our kids are already behind, and we're putting timed things on for small children. So I would just ask that we just really consider this TK thing, and is it worth it financially and for our kids?
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rita Miller.
Sources, both domestically and internationally, and I thought I'd share it with you guys so you have an idea of the relative risks of what's going on in this current October 2021. Are you ready?
Hey, yeah, and you'll have 3 minutes once you start speaking.
Perfect. I'm going to start by flipping through and giving you a couple things to look at. On page 4, this is going over the totality of our United States population, the totality of confirmed COVID cases, totality of COVID hospitalizations, and the totality of COVID deaths. As you can see, as fraction of a population, we have estimated a pretty high percentage of the students have already contracted COVID, and the death rate is lower than the 700 you might have been hearing in the news. And then the page 5, it talks about England went through, and they have a better data system because they have a nationalized healthcare. And what they found was, of the totality of kids that had COVID death, 25 of them were actually directly related to COVID, and of those, only 5 didn't have a huge health condition, and the number one condition was obesity that impacted whether or not they were high or low risk. And then I was going to flip all the way to the back. We are looking at page 34. I strongly recommend that y'all take a look at what the FDA did in their 5-hour discussion about why they decided to do the EUA. And the gist of the reasoning was they didn't want to restrict the type of illness profile the child had to have to receive it. But they explicitly said they do not wish to see any mandates. And I don't expect you guys to mandate, but how you encourage will impact whether or not a child will be at a higher risk of having a side effect that doesn't seem to be associated with their health risk factors versus is this a good decision because they have health risk factors? And I think that might be something we want to clearly communicate. So it goes over the benefits of COVID-19. If you get it, you get lifelong immunity, likely. And then the benefits of a vaccine, the risk reduction, they said it takes 1 million children vaccinated with a 90% permanent effectiveness vaccine to reduce one death. That is a lot of children, and they predict that they're going to have hundreds of hospitalizations for the heart conditions in that 1 million children. So it's not a net benefit. And then the last thing, I was looking at the emails I get with the close contact. There's not been an update to include monoclonal antibody information to the parents. As a close contact, they can receive treatment even if they've been vaccinated against COVID-19. If they're extremely high risk, like our multi-generation groups, they can also receive a prophylaxis shot. And none of that's being communicated, and we could be protecting the entire family unit with EUA-approved medications by just giving the information. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this time, the board is going to go into closed session in pursuant to Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Section 551, Section 551.0771 through 551.074.
just got a brand new mic. I feel like I'm having to bend over so they can hear me. You just gotta get right up on it like this. That's what I'm saying, you got that one, just that guy, a while back, he was like this. Well, this one, like, the other one was floppy. Yeah. So this one you can sort of, and as long as you're right here and like projecting into the mic, it'll pick it up. It'll pick it up really well. I just laugh at the people that come up and they get like right up on it. It's like, what are you doing? It's not an ice cream cone. I'm not a loud talker anyway, especially now. So I've always been the person to try to get up to the mic because I get accused of not, nobody can hear me. So. Steve has that same issue. He's when people complain that they can't hear somebody. And he makes fun of me. Well, I think they fixed the mics and they work better now because he's been a lot more audible, but yeah. Before we redid a bunch of this and got it working the way it needed to, that was the biggest complaint. That they couldn't hear Mr. Chapman talk. And it's like, he's not that loud of a guy to begin with. Well, I'm not either. I tend more, if I get in front of people, I'll try to project. But just talking, I'm pretty quiet. Yeah, same. But like when I was at Granbury, I mean, I had a spot up there. You can sit here. There were 6 people that sat up there besides the board and superintendent. sixties to early eighties. This generation. Like, they're known as the forgotten generation because they were sort of like in that, early to mid sixties and late seventies, early eighties, so 65 to 80s usually. And then the millennials are from 81 to 96. he still gets voted in every single time with this. Yeah. Well, and he goes out and he talks to him. He just comes across as crazy. I like the fact that he's had the same news for forever and he doesn't waver on it. Like, unless presented with new evidence, but he's one of those people that's like, mean the racism. That's what you mean. After the 4 years of the orange guy and everything, yes, absolutely. Some scuffles, and there wasn't some rioting going on during the Black Lives Matter stuff. People tried to overthrow the government unsuccessfully and really poorly, but still tried to overthrow the government. And you say they were peaceful protesters? There's only one big difference between that. Well, emphasize the fact that people were committing treason and sedition, and it's this color of the skin that people tend to be. I mean, Fox News and watching Tucker Carlson especially, it is like there have been, you know who David Duke is? The leader of the Ku Klux Klan? Yeah. He straight up said in interviews, they watch Tucker Carlson clips. They'll watch it multiple times a night. It's made for those kind of people. It's a dogmas. I hate it. Honestly, the thing is with politics, especially people, a lot of people that talk about politics now, I think probably politics don't understand the opposing viewpoints, because being pro-choice is a conservative viewpoint. Because conservatism is all about having the government not be in the and being pro-choice just means the government's not allowed, I should have bodily autonomy. Whether I agree with abortion or disagree, I should be able to choose what I can keep doing in my body. I die. And I'm not worried though. They can't take my organs and say, well, this guy's dying, he needs a heart right now. They can't take my heart and say, here. And I'm dead. So a corpse has more bodily autonomy than a woman? I'm not, again, I don't agree with abortion at all, but I don't think it's the government's job to tell somebody what they can and can't do. I think it was, it was the 80s, it was like the Soviet Union, Republican ran into Rome. And so they started little things that are really niche things, and they had to turn to the evangelical Christian community to start getting those. And that's when it started moving further and further. Because before that, the Republicans always been on the fence, tax cuts, Russian war, and the Democrats have always sort of put on social programs. Yeah. And so it's just, and then they started. There's some good ones in there. There is. It really pisses me off that a lot of the Republicans that are decent ones are leaving. Because they're like, we just can't get anything done anymore, and the party I'm a part of, isn't a party anymore. Like, when you have Adam Kinzinger, when you have these guys that are actually there to try to make a difference in a real conservative, saying that we're not a conservative party anymore, we don't even know what we are. We're just, yeah, we're just here to beat the other guys. And that's the only way to look at it. Where there's, I mean, straight up, in 2020, the Republican Party straight up said their platform was to beat the Democrats. They didn't have a policy platform. And they're basing it up like, this is not politics. This is not, it's not a football game, guys. It's not just beating the other team. It's, what are you going to do?
to leave it on, you can just leave it on.
Okay, yeah, because we'd have to set individual times and know about when they're gonna come back, for it to start back up, so we just leave it.
Yeah, just leave it on, yeah.
And the recording will still get posted.
Sorry, guys, they're meeting for a little while longer.
It's all fine.
We get kicked out.
I got new shoes. Well, that's what.
I'm terrible.
Hey, Josh, after this is over, will you come help me do this Google thing? Okay.
Oh, yeah, you gonna do this?
Yeah, he's gonna come do it.
All right, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
We are adjourned.
We need help getting this done.
Maybe you could just walk all of us through it together. I'm sorry.